issues and problems related to the conflict in Ukraine. In the course of our previous meeting that took place in June here in St. Petersburg, we talked in great detail about the situation that resulted in the conflict. We also had an exchange of opinions about possible ways to settle this conflict. The President of South Africa, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, as one of the co-authors of the African Peace Initiative, came up with concrete proposals and shared them. We have given careful thought to the suggestions and thoughts put forth by our African friends. We are very serious about that, and we have given great attention to this matter, and we hope, colleagues, that you understand very well the nature and the origins of this crisis. Well, at least we tried to explain how we view that. We believe that this conflict does not date from yesterday. It was provoked by certain forces in the West that had been getting ready for a hybrid war against Russia. They were doing everything to turn Ukraine into an instrument to undermine the fundamentals of security of our country and to damage our world standing and to undermine our statehood. And I have full grounds to say that. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Secondly, today, in the beginning of our discussion, the President of the Chairperson of the African Union said something that I'm going to quote now. I didn't respond back then. My dear colleague, you said back then that you are against coup d'etat, and I agree with you fully. I didn't respond back then, but I would like to say that we support that. We are against coup d'etat, and the first coup d'etat happened in 2014 in Ukraine. It was an illegal, armed, violent coup d'etat that happened in Ukraine. It was actively supported by Western countries, which violated all norms of international law. Western countries publicly supported this coup d'etat, and they even named the figure of money they had spent on that coup d'etat. We will talk today, and as we know, you are sincerely trying to do everything in your power to contribute to achieving a just, durable, and sustainable solution to this conflict, and we highly value your well-balanced approach, and we know that you did not support the anti-Russian campaign unleashed against us, and of course, we wouldn't have been talking right now if it had not been the case, and we also are very happy with your position, with your initiative that says that the principles of the UN Charter have to be respected in their entirety with due regard for their interlinkage. Right now, there are accusations that Russia is violating the UN Charter, but I do not agree with that. I believe that we are fully in compliance with the UN Charter. In 2014, the Ukrainian authorities basically unleashed military hostilities against a part of the Ukrainian nation. They used aircraft, heavy weaponry, and tanks. They were acting against those who disagreed with the coup d'etat that was supported by the Western countries back in 2014. This is how basically the West started the war in Ukraine, and this is what happened, and it is undeniable. We, on our part, have done everything in our power to find a peaceful settlement solution to this crisis, to this conflict. We participated in the signing of the so-called Minsk Agreement, and the Kyiv authorities sabotaged these agreements because they didn't implement any single element of the Minsk Agreement with the support of the West. Not a single element. And subsequently, they announced that they were not going to respect the Minsk Agreements. We had to recognize the independence of certain territories, even though for 8 years we had not done so for these new entities. For 8 years, we had been trying to achieve a peaceful settlement So we recognized their independence. We signed a treaty on cooperation, friendship with these entities, all in compliance with the UN Charter. And under these treaties, we responded to their plea for assistance in full compliance with Article 51 of the UN Charter. So there has not been any violation of the UN Charter in this particular case, whereas our Western partners forgot how they had been acting in Iraq when they destroyed the statehood of this country. They eliminated Saddam Hussein. In the end, they also forget how they were acting in Libya without the sanction of the UN Security Council. They acted. They also forgot that they basically destroyed stability in Sudan. They invaded Syria. They do not give one straw about the UN Charter. They only remember international law when they know how to use this instrument against someone, in this particular case against Russia, but they're not going to succeed because that's just too primitive. If they want someone to respect the UN Charter and other norms of international law, they should think about doing the same and respecting the very same international norms. That said, that does not mean that we do not want or seek to achieve a peaceful solution. And your ideas on peaceful settlement, as I have already said, is something we have had a very careful look at because it resonates with the provisions of the plan for peaceful settlement of the situation around Ukraine that was put forth in February by China. At the same time, we know very well that the Kyiv authorities have come up with special legal framework. There has been a decree by the president of Ukraine which forbids them from engaging in talks. Russia, for its part, has never refused to engage in talks. Quite the contrary, we've always publicly stated that we are willing to engage and continue the talks. And I said during our previous meeting in St. Petersburg, I told you that we had basically arrived at a draft treaty. But once our troops were withdrawn from Kiev, which we had been asked to do to create the conditions for such a treaty, the Kiev authorities abandoned their previous engagements and agreements. Then I think the ball is in their part of the field. I'm not going to go into the details of that agreement that had been arrived at. That would not be proper for me. Well, not everyone knows that, but we know very well that Kiev got its autonomy and independence when the USSR was dissolved based on the Declaration of Independence, and this Declaration of Independence states plain and clear that Ukraine is a neutral state. And for us, this is of principal importance. Why did the West had to try to involve Ukraine into NATO? We do not understand that. And this is what creates a fundamental threat to our security. Because the movement of the infrastructure of the military bloc that is basically adversarial in nature to Russia towards our borders is unacceptable to us. There are other considerations, but we will be able to talk about that in the part of the meeting that is going to be held behind closed doors. Thank you very much for your attention. Yes, please. I would like to give the floor to the chairman of the African Union. The floor is yours, sir. Thank you. Well, it's true that we spoke about many of these issues. Today, we would like to have a look at how the things stand. And as President Ramaphosa is the one who initiated this, then we'll give the floor to him. Yes, please. Over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, President Assoumani. And greetings once again to you, President Putin, and indeed to my other brothers who have joined us. We are very delighted that we've been joined by President Museveni, President Sassou Nguesso, and President Sisi, who could not join us when we last came here So our team is now enhanced, and we are pleased that we could have this engagement with yourself. And thank you very much for agreeing to meet as we do. We also wish to thank you for giving us an outline of the issues, as you have done, which you did do when we met you a few weeks ago when we came to St. Petersburg. And we have often said that having come here from meeting President Zelensky, we are, in our view, the only group that is able to talk to both sides. You yourself attested to that, and we are pleased that we can have access to you and have a follow-up discussion as you promised that we would have on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit. So we are really delighted. As you heard the various inputs by various leaders during the Russia-Africa Summit plenary sessions, all of Africa would like to see peace prevailing. We are all in support of peace. And in many ways, our coming here also testifies to that. Of course, in addition, we collectively, as African countries, have a very collaborative relationship with Russia. We cooperate in a number of areas, and this gives us the ability to be able to talk to you about peace, because much as we are having challenges on our African continent with Niger now being subjected to a coup and a few other countries, as the African Union and indeed as African countries, we stand on the side of peace. And even in this case, with the conflict in the Ukraine, we still advocate for peace. And in a way, we feel that we have a right to call for peace, because the ongoing conflict, as you heard during the course of the day, also negatively affects us as African countries. Apart from wanting to support a peace process all over the world, this conflict is now directly affecting us as well. As we told you the last time, and as far as food security is concerned, the prices of our fertilizers have gone up. The cost of living in many of our countries have gone up. And we do believe that it is in the interest of humanity and the people, yes, of Russia and Ukraine, that there should be peace, and this conflict should be settled in a peaceful manner. We do understand from your explanation the origins of this conflict and where it started and how it started. We are, however, pleased to hear you say you recognize the initiative that we as African countries, 7 African countries, have taken, and you take this initiative by the 7 countries very seriously, and you've given due consideration and regard to the proposals that we put forward. And you will recall that we said we would like engagement, that there should be engagement. And in calling for engagement, we say so from our own histories as African countries, that many countries on the continent were involved in various conflicts, and in the end, those conflicts, many of them were resolved through peaceful means, through negotiations, and it is this that informs us to call for negotiations and dialogue. And in that regard, we do believe that we do have a right to call for peace, because that is a principle that we firmly believed in. We did inform you at the moment when we met you that we as African countries stand firm on the respect for the United Nations Charter and principles, which we also have appropriated as the African Union. And we do believe that those principles should be respected, and we are pleased to hear you say exactly the same thing. And we are pleased to hear you also say that our ideas resonate with your ideas, and they also coincide with the ideas that have been put forward by others, and principally China. When we met you, we did say that our initiative should not ever be seen as replacing other initiatives. It should be seen as complementing the efforts and the initiatives that others have embarked upon. And therefore, as we speak in support of the various other proposals. And President Putin, we are pleased tonight that you will be able to give us an indication of your response to a number of the proposals that we put forward in the closed session, that is. And what pleases us is that you yourself have said that you have been giving serious consideration to the proposals that have been put forward by the 7 African countries. So I draw a lot of confidence in what you have said, and that in the closed session you'll be able to inform us. Yes, you are absolutely right in saying that a number of us have taken various positions with regards to this conflict, but the main and key positions that all of us have taken is that this conflict should be resolved through negotiations, through dialogue, and we agree with you that that is the best way to go. And in this regard, as African countries, we want to play a constructive role. We want to see how best we can assist in ensuring that there is dialogue and that this conflict should be brought to an end. As we said right from the onset, and as we listened to you today, you responded to some of the issues that were in our proposals, and one of those was about the grain. We proposed that we would like the Black Sea initiative to be implemented, and that the Black Sea should be opened. And in that regard, we were saying, so that we are understood, we were saying we would like the Black Sea to be open to the world market. And we were not here, as we are not, coming to plead for donations for the African continent. We do recognize that out of the generosity of the heart of the Russian Federation, you have decided to donate grain to a number of countries on the continent that are facing challenges. We respect that and we accept that, but our main import here is not so much focused on the issue of giving and donating grain to the African continent, but we accept that you have decided in that regard. So we are here, President Putin, to listen to you, to hear what your response would be to some of the proposals. And as we said, we are prepared to engage further. And today we are very pleased that there are 6 of us here, and President Hichilema could not travel, but at the same time, he is also well represented by our presence here. So thank you very much, and I'm sure that we will be able to hear your response to a number of those issues.